So I have all of the footage from day one of the Hatterene series. I do not have any audio or video of me from that day because I didn't expect to top cut and I just wanted to, play low stakes off stream. So instead, what I will do is something a little bit different today. What I want to do is do kind of like a post commentary over the footage, kind of like a replay review, where I talk about what I was kind of thinking in the moment, why I made the choices I did, and any better choices that I could have made with the benefit of hindsight to more optimally play these games. So we'll go through all of the rounds from day one. Not all in this video, of course, and I'll just talk about it. Round one, actually, I do have the footage for it, but it didn't count because I got paired round one with a man, and as y'all might know, the Hatterene series is a online tournament series for women and non-binary people, so he kind of had to drop from the tournament and forfeited round one to me. So I started the Hatterene series 1-0 without having to play my first round because of that little bit of luck. So this is actually round two from the Hatterene series. I got matched with another size spam team, so I was a little bit shaking in my boots about it. Also, that Mian Xiao right there does have wide guard, which can block my size spam. So as you can see, I didn't really get to start with my normal Hatterene and Ndidi because I was worried about Mian Xiao. So instead what I did was I led Ursaluna and Ndidi and I put Zapdos and Torkoal in the back. So I went kind of pretty hard Trick Room and was hoping for the best as far as leads go. So then on the leads, they did lead Mian Xiao and Iron Crown. I helpfully set up the Psychic Terrain for Iron Crown. So that wasn't fantastic on my part. I did want to get my burn up with Ursaluna and also protect it from a potential close combat, so I just protected on Ursaluna and attempted to set up Trick Room with Ndidi there. I did not Terrasilize because I wanted to keep my resistance to Psychic and also not be weak to Tachyon Cutter, which is great because I did get hit with a Tachyon Cutter here by Iron Crown. And then there was a close combat into Ursaluna, so it was a good protect on my part to go ahead and get that burn up and also get Trick Room up at the same time. So now I'm in a great position. Remember though that Mian Xiao has wide guard, and I was thinking, I know they have wide guard. They know I know they have wide guard. There's no way they think I click Earthquake here, right? So they're not gonna click wide guard, they'll click something else. So I did click Earthquake. I did Terra Ghost though, just in case. They went for another close combat into Ursaluna here, and I swapped in Zapdos because Zapdos is a flying type. It's immune to Earthquake, so it won't take any damage from Ursaluna. That's a really cool little synergy there, as well as the Psychic Seed on Zapdos helps keep it a little bit safer on that terrain from other special attackers. But of course, Mian Xiao did click wide guard, so my Earthquake did no damage, and both Ursaluna and Zapdos have to take a very powerful Expanding Force now from Iron Crown. It is super effective against Zapdos, but both Mons are bulky enough with that special defense boost to live. But unfortunately, I basically just wasted a turn here. So that's not great, and Ursaluna's low on health now. So I decided I'm not going to click Earthquake again. I'm just going to go straight for that Mian Xiao. I'm going to try to get it off the field as quickly as possible so that I can start clicking Earthquake and make the most of the Trick Room turns that I have left. So Iron Crown protects itself, but I doubled the Mian Xiao instead to take it off the field so that I could start clicking Earthquake. So it's actually very, very good for me that Iron Crown clicked Protect instead of Expanding Force, because both of my Mons, Ursaluna and Zapdos, would be dead right now if it had clicked Expanding Force. But now that Mian Xiao is off the field, I can start clicking Earthquake with Ursaluna, which is great. And I do just that. I click Earthquake with Ursaluna, and I decide that I think I want to go ahead and double that Ndidi just to make sure that it goes down. So I click acrobatics on Indeedee. Indeedee uses Follow Me as expected, but my Earthquake will still do big damage to both of those mons. Not quite enough to kill Iron Crown though, because it's Terra Dragon to get rid of that weakness to ground. But the acrobatics follows up and takes down Indeedee, so now we are tied 2-2 with Indeedee in the back as well as Torkoal. So their last one is Ogerpon, which is actually kind of great for me because my son really helped shut down Ogerpon really well. As you can see though, it is the last turn of Trick Room, and I am expecting both of their mons to protect here through the last turn of Trick Room, so there's not much I can do this turn. I'm thinking about locking into Eruption, but that would be a bad idea because I likely won't be doing any damage until we leave Trick Room, and if Torkoal takes damage before it gets to move, Eruption will do far less. So I lock into Heat Wave instead. And there's the Spiky Shield from Ogerpon. And a follow-up Protect from Iron Crown. So as expected, I don't do any damage this last turn of Trick Room. And it really has me thinking that, man, if I had just not used Earthquake that one turn while I did have Trick Room up, I might be in a better position right here because I didn't do any damage that turn. So now my Torkoal is Choice Spec, so I just have to click Heat Wave again, and the only thing I really can do with Indeedee here is click Follow Me. I think about maybe trying to set Trick Room back up here, but I think that's maybe less likely to be helpful. I think it's more likely for Indeedee to just soak up a hit and let Torkoal get a Heat Wave off, that would be more beneficial to me. So here's the Tachyon Cutter. Indeedee does take it. It was probably heading for Indeedee anyway, but we would not have gotten Trick Room up, so it was definitely more useful to click Follow Me here. And now an Ivy Cudgel is going to come out from Ogerpon. As you can see, even though it's super effective in the sun, it really doesn't do much damage at all. And right here is where we lose the game. We hit the Heat Wave onto Ogerpon, or we hit the Heat Wave onto Iron Crown, but we miss the Heat Wave onto Ogerpon. And even though the game isn't over yet, this is the turn that really cements it, that I will not be winning this particular game. Ogerpon's going to protect again, stalling out my turns of sun, which is the correct play. All I can do is click Heat Wave and let it happen. At this point, I'm pretty much hoping for either a particularly frail Ogerpon or a crit on my Heat Wave. I know I can take one more Ivy Cudgel in the sun, which I do, no crits. I hit the Heat Wave this time, and as you can see, Ogerpon just barely survives. So if we had hit that Heat Wave earlier, Ogerpon would be dead right now. But instead, Ogerpon Spiky Shields one more time to let the sun expire. And at this point, I'm really just trying to think about how I'm going to adjust my game plan for game 2. I know we cannot win this. I'm playing it out for time so that we can think about what to do in the next game. So there we go, Torkoal goes down, and what can we do better next time? So I decided to switch it up a little bit, even though really Ursaluna and Indeedee worked really well for me in that game. I decided I'm gonna go ahead and lead Hatterene plus Indeedee this time. I'm a little more comfortable with that lead, so I think that I might be able to pilot it a little bit more effectively in the early game. And they don't lead Mienshao this time, which is fantastic. Instead, they lead Fluttermane and Ogerpon. So I'm going to do our standard turn 1 with Hatterene and Indeedee. I'm going to click Trick Room with Hatterene and Follow Me with Indeedee to ensure that I get that Trick Room up. So they're gonna pivot their Flutter Mane into Iron Crown. Iron Crown 4 times resists Expanding Force because of its Steel Psychic typing. So it's a fantastic mon for them to have out on the field right now, and it's a little tough for me. As you can see, they're also gonna go ahead and Terrastalize their Ogerpon. That means that Ogerpon gets a +1 special defense boost, so it can better survive Hattering's Expanding Force, but also do more damage to Indeedee. I think they're trying to take it out as quickly as possible. So we use our Follow Me. The Ivy Cudgel comes out from Ogerpon, and as you can see, it does a lot of damage, but Indeedee does survive. So we are able to get the Trick Room up. Well, we would have gotten the Trick Room up anyway, but we are able to have one more turn for Indeedee to soak up some damage for Hattering. So now I'm sort of thinking, I know this Expanding Force is not going to kill either of these mons, but I think it's best to get some damage down if possible. Both of my mons do resist Expanding Force, so I don't think Iron Crown will be doing a ton of damage, and I want to be able to I want Indeedee to go down so I can get a free switch, and is basically what's happening here. So the Expanding Force, as predicted, does very little damage, and I actually heal pull. This is a really cool interaction. So Hattering has the ability Magic Bounce, which means that status moves used on it get sort of bounced back to the Pokemon that tried to hit Hattering with the status move. So when Indeedee uses Heal Pulse on Hattering, it doesn't heal Hattering, it gets bounced back to Indeedee, and Indeedee gets healed instead, which is super duper cool, and it comes in very handy in this turn, because as you can see, Ogerpon's Ivy Cudgel comes out, it does big damage on Hattering, and then the Expanding Force will finish off Hattering. The Expanding Force will finish off Hattering, letting us get Torkoal in for free, but Indeedee is still on the field. So because of that Heal Pulse, Indeedee was able to take the Expanding Force very well. And you can see I'm sort of thinking right here between Torkoal and Ursaluna. Torkoal pressures more immediate damage, but Ursaluna needs to get its burn up to do more damage. So it needs to have a turn on the field before it can really do a lot of damage. So I do ultimately decide to go with Torkoal, and here's where I make a mistake. I'm not going to switch out Indeedee for Ursaluna. Instead, I'm just gonna click Follow Me, but Torkoal pressures a lot here. Torkoal probably is going to KO both these Pokemon if I click Eruption. So either these Pokemon are going to be dead or they're going to click Protect. So what I should have done here was swap Indeedee out for Ursaluna so that by the end of this next turn, Ursaluna could have its burn up, and then I would have two extremely powerful sweepers under Trick Room threatening major damage. But instead, I do click Eruption with Torkoal, but I just click Follow Me with Indeedee. So it's really sort of a half passive turn that could have been much more strong and commanding. So I'm gonna click Eruption again with Torkoal. I have to, I'm locked into it with Specs. And you can see I'm thinking pretty hard about it here with Indeedee, but ultimately I do the same thing. I decide to just click Follow Me with Indeedee instead of swapping in Ursaluna to really play more aggressively and make the most of my Trick Room. I mean, you can see that they are stalling out my Trick Room, and I need to play more aggressively, and I'm just not. So that's something that I hope I can learn from a little bit in the future. But as you can see, they swap both their mons out because they can't protect anymore. They are going to lose Flutter Mane to an Eruption here. I don't think anyone thought Flutter Mane was going to take that. But Indeedee does live, but as you can see, it's under half health. It'll go down to another Eruption. And Follow Me will do nothing against Eruption. So they bring Iron Crown back out. I expect to protect here from Iron Crown. I'm checking, it's the last turn of Trick Room. They're definitely gonna protect on Iron Crown. So what I do is I decide if I'm gonna be fighting outside of Trick Room, I don't wanna be locked into Eruption. So I swap Torkoal out for Ursaluna now so that it can go ahead and get the burn and do more damage next turn. And then I just use a Follow Me from Indeedee so that if they do go for some kind of single target attack, Indeedee can soak up that damage for Ursaluna. So Ursaluna comes in, and then there we see the Protect from Indeedee, and the matching Protect from Iron Crown. So we get our Ursaluna in completely free, but we are outside of Trick Room now at the end of this turn. So the burn goes up there at the end of the turn, and now Ursaluna can do big damage, but it's also pretty vulnerable to an expanding force here. So I'm thinking pretty hard about what I want to do. I end up going with Trick Room and Headlong Rush, basically forcing Iron Crown to decide whether they want to stop Trick Room from going up again or stop Ursaluna from killing their Iron Crown, because remember, they cannot terastallize away from their ground weakness, and the psychic terrain has timed out, so they can't just go for a big expanding force. And as you can see, they just went for Helping Hand Tachyon Cutter, so when DD goes down, we don't get Trick Room back up, but Iron Crown goes down as well. So now we're 2v2, but we are outside of Trick Room, so they're in a slightly more advantageous position here. So I bring Torkoal back in, and they bring Ogerpon back in, so I can reset up the sun here. Or no, the sun's already up. So Ogerpon is in, it gets that special defense boost. So I'm looking, this is the last turn of sun. Ogerpon's gonna do big damage starting next turn. And DD's definitely just gonna click follow me. So if I want to do big damage to Ogerpon, I need to make sure it gets hit. So I'm thinking very hard here. I'm thinking, I could Facade in DD and then go for Heat Wave, not Eruption, because we don't want to be locked into Eruption, but next turn when the sun is gone, Heat Wave will be doing very little damage to Ogerpon because it's lost its sun boost and it's resisted by Ogerpon. And that's when I sort of decide that Ursaluna is the Pokemon that needs to do the damage here, right? Ursaluna needs to do it. So I go ahead and Facade into the Indeedee slot because I'm expecting both of these Mons to protect. It's the last turn of Sun. So I Facade into the Indeedee slot so that I don't take recoil damage from Spiky Shield. And I go ahead and lock into Heat Wave here. Maybe that's not the most advantageous, but I go ahead and do it. Heat Wave is stronger than Earth Power. And this is when it comes to me. I have saved my Terra. I have not terastallized my Pokemon yet. And DD is going to use Follow Me. I need to hit that Ogerpon. So I click Earthquake with Ursaluna, and I Terra Grass Torkoal so that it will take less damage from my own Earthquake, but also less damage from Ivy Cudgel. I'm basically forcing them to say, hey, if you target my Torkoal, you're not going to do any damage, and Ursaluna's going to kill both of your Mons. But if you target Ursaluna, it probably goes down to an Ivy Cudgel. But Torkoal is going to do damage to you with Heat Wave. And it's Terra Grass, you're still not doing very much damage to Torkoal, and I've locked into Heat Wave instead of Eruption. And luckily for me, that works out. They targeted down the Torkoal with an Ivy Cudgel. It does hardly anything at all because of the Terra Grass. Ursaluna uses Earthquake, takes down both their Mons, and Torkoal's still alive. It took that Earthquake like a champ, even through a critical hit. So game 2 goes in my favor. We're going to a game 3 for the set. So for game 3, I realized that Hatterene really didn't do much, and I was very lucky that they didn't lead me in Xiao game 2. So I go back to Indeedee plus Ursaluna, and I put Torkoal in the back because Torkoal has just been a star. I decide to bring Walking Wake in the back though, because I've done a very good job up until now of stalling out my Trick Room, and Walking Wake is the best mon I have for cleanup mode outside of Trick Room. Once Trick Room is expired and I'm not able to get it back up again, Walking Wake can do pretty good damage. It's also pretty good against Ogerpon because it 4 times resists its Ivy Cudgel. So they go back to their Manshao plus Iron Crown lead, which is fine by me because I did not bring Hatterene. So you see, I'm thinking about, so I go ahead and tear a Ghost and go straight for a headlong rush into Mian Xiao. I think they are gonna expect me to protect like I did game 1. So I wanna catch them a little bit off guard. I also go for the Trick Room with Indeedee. So once again, I'm forcing them to either do some damage on Ursaluna with the potential that it might get blocked, or try to double into Indeedee and take it down so that I can't get Trick Room up. But either way, something good is gonna happen for me this turn, right? And as you can see there, Indeedee lives both a Tachyon Cutter and a U-turn. Plus the U-turn activates Indeedee's Rocky Helmet and breaks Mian Xiao's Sash for me, so that later I'll be able to take it down in one single hit, which is super great. They do a really good turn here. They saw that Ursaluna did not protect and very smartly expected a ground type move, so they pivoted into Tornadus here, which I definitely did not expect them to have in the back. But that means that I got Trick Room up and Indeedee is still alive. So even though I didn't do any damage with Ursaluna here, it's at full health and it's under Trick Room. So I'm gonna go ahead and Facade into the Iron Crown. That will take it down in one hit because really Tornadus is not much of a threat at all. Better to pick off everything around it and leave the Tornadus alone if possible. So Indeedee will just do a little bit of chip damage with Dazzling Gleam. There is no reason to follow me because Tornadus's only attacking move is Bleak Wind. So Indeedee will go down. That's actually great for us because again, it means that we're under Trick Room and now we can bring Torkoal in for free and have Ursaluna and Torkoal, two very strong attackers, side by side under Trick Room, ready to just murder everything. So they're gonna bring out Ogerpon again, but remember they've already terastallized their Iron Crown, so they do not have access to the Terra on Ogerpon to help it survive Torkoal's onslaught here. So I'm gonna go straight for a Facade into Tornadus and an Eruption for Torkoal because I expected Eruption to kill Ogerpon anyway, and I also expect Ogerpon to Spiky Shield this turn, which it does. So instead what I do is I go for the Facade into Tornadus because it's a more clean shot for us to just take kills. But Tornadus does use Rain Dance, which is bad for us because we locked into Eruption. Now Eruption still did pretty good damage, but it won't do enough to Ogerpon next turn. So what we'll do here as they bring Mian Xiao out to replace Tornadus, what we'll do here is Ursaluna doesn't really care that the rain is up and Ogerpon just protected. So we're gonna Facade into Ogerpon because we know it's unlikely that it will protect again. We're gonna swap Torkoal out so that we can preserve it to readjust the weather for us later. And we'll bring Walking Wake in because that's all we have in the back to swap Torkoal out with. So as you can see, Mian Xiao goes for Wide Guard. I did not fall for it this time. I did not click Earthquake. Instead, I clicked Facade into Ogerpon because Ogerpon couldn't protect. Well, it could go for the double protect, but it only has a 1/3 chance to get it. And as you can see, it takes it down in one hit. So now we are 3 against 1 with this poor Mian Xiao with its Focus Sash already broken. And Trick Room is still up. So they're in a pretty bad position and we're in a pretty commanding position. I think they recognize that. So they go ahead and forfeit. Game 3 is ours and the set is ours. So there were a couple places here where I definitely made mistakes. I could have played slightly more optimally in a few places, especially in those first couple games. But as you can see, when you have a team that you're comfortable with and you play well overall with that team, you can make mistakes and still win games.